Right, hi Year 10, this is Mr. Charrington. Um, I hope you're all well and enjoying this lovely weather and staying safe at the same time. Um, this PowerPoint outlines the next stage of your project for portraits, which is basically a response to my whole class feedback about your Kirchner-inspired portraits that you did due for the 15th of May a couple of weeks ago. So, as it says on the slide, we're continuing with Kirchner, and the next phase is to reflect on your brilliant Kirchner-inspired portraits that you did. And this slide just reminds you what you were doing. And I wanted to show some of the really, really great work that Mr. Greenwood and myself have been receiving from all the classes in Year 10, because it's really, really inspiring, guys, and it does make a massive difference to be stuck here at home but still be seeing your ace work, because that's really why we became teachers, I think. So here we go. Here are some of the Kirchner-inspired portraits. I wonder if you can work out who did any of them, because some of them I think are self-portraits. And yet another slide, because there's been so many. I've been really, really blown away. I think they're really, really cool. So well done, you lot, and keep them coming, please. There's quite a lot of students who haven't submitted one yet, and these are important, A, for your book, but also to be part of the project as we move forward. Right, so my whole class feedback. Just looking at what you've all been doing, Mr. Greenwood and I have just been agreeing on a few things. Firstly, that the main aim of the project of this part of the unit was to look at the application of line and to make your work sort of Kirchner style. And as such, there's some funny little lines down in the corner to remind you: thin lines and thick lines, short ones and long ones, zigzags, curvy, and so many more. So first of all, what went well? Lots of you have used line, lots of you have expressed emotion, and all of you have been highly original, and that was really, really nice to see. Oops, I've gone over one of my boxes, so if you look down there, it says highlights in the bottom left-hand corner. It's gone grey already, but it just says that specific students have been highlighted in my brief on Show My Homework, rather than putting them on here. Okay, where there's a what went well, there's always an even better if. So you can now see EBI in the black box that's in the top left. There were quite a lot of areas of face that were left blank in some of the portraits. So looking back, can you add more line into them to give more expression of the emotion and be more Kirchner-like? Secondly, we need to see more blocks of tone. If you look at the Kirchner image on the right-hand side of this slide, you can see that some areas like the eyebrows and under the eyes and the shoulder and parts of the landscape have been left quite black. And I think that adds to a sort of general balance of tone across the picture. So some of you need to add a bit more areas of tone. More varieties needed in types of line, and this is the main feedback really, is that we need to see more variation. Short and long lines, wide and narrow ones, single and hatched. It doesn't really matter which you go with, as long as they suit the expression in your picture, and the more variation you have, the better. And I would say, therefore, as a result, that the misconception or error that most of you are making is just not looking at Kirchner's woodcut portraits enough and making sure you do the same thing. So the main task for this week is a dirt task, okay? And it's going to be in order to help you think about how you can work back into your pieces and give them more Kirchner style and give them a wider variation of line. And in order to help you do that, I've come up with a little exercise, Okay, so what we're going to do, I think it's probably easier for me to go on to the next slide to explain this. So I'll do that now. Okay, first thing you need to do is choose a Kirchner portrait in order to copy an eye section. In other words, the section around the eye of about 10 centimeters by 10 centimeters. It really doesn't have to be exact, guys. This is like expressionism in itself. It doesn't have to be accurate. It doesn't have to be exact. All right, but a rough 10 by 10 section of around the eye on one of his portraits. But you really want to choose one of the portraits that has a varied use of line and tone. So, for example, in this one here, I've chosen this because if you look closely at it, you can see there's a really strong variation in types of line. It's called Portrait of Shames. I don't know who Shames was, or Chames, in 1917, but he has a very wrinkly face. And I've zoomed in on the eye there. So this is what I mean by choosing a section of about 10 centimeters by about 10 centimeters, where you can see a variety of lines from dots to thick lines, thin lines, short lines, long lines, diagonal lines, horizontal lines, and so on. Okay, so remembering that variety of line, even down to groups of lines as opposed to single ones, so hatched lines and blocks of tone. There's a few more here on the right. And you can see he does this quite a lot, doesn't he? Around the eye, he tends to use blocks of tone to create that sense of shadow in the eye socket. And also these eye lines underneath the eyes that sort of suggest sort of bags and tiredness and weariness. Okay, so first stage for you is to choose a Kirchner portrait, and you can, if you want, just use this one. I've uploaded a copy of this one onto Show My Homework with the task, and I've also left the last slide of this PowerPoint has that picture as well, so you can just print it off if you want. Alternatively, if there's a different picture by Kirchner, a different woodcut that suits the style you've been working in better, then take that. Just make sure it has a varied use of line, please. Okay. So here goes. Here's the dirt task. Choose an eye section with a variety of types of line. Draw the main outlines first. So here's my first stage. You can see there's my hand, and I'm just drawing the main outlines, the outlines of the box, the main outlines of the eye, and some other big lines that are on the picture. Copy carefully, observing different types of line. This is stage 2. And you can look in that picture now, you can see I've been properly copying in different types of line, from the short ones, the long ones, the dotted ones, the fat ones, and so on. Okay. Fill in some of the shapes with tone to show the darker areas. Like I said, the darkness of the eye, the darkness in the eye above the in the eye socket, under the eye, stuff like that. Okay. So first 3 steps: draw main outlines, copy carefully, observing differences in types of line, and then fill in some shapes with tone to show the darker areas. And just remember the different kinds of line that Kirchner uses and look out for them in the picture. Okay? So the finished product should be a 10 by 10 accurate copy of an eye section of one of Kirchner's pieces. Just to recap. Once you've done that, once you've got your 10 by 10 centimeter section copied, like I have there, it's not quite finished, that one, but once yours is finished, I want you to please upload a photo of it onto Show My Homework, and that's by the 5th of June, so that's our next deadline, which is the first Friday back after half term. I want you to keep the original somewhere safe, because it can go in your book. This is an appropriate and relevant piece of study that you've done, and will look good in your experimentation pages. Okay, so keep it somewhere safe. And lastly, and this is just a bit of a challenge, consider how you can apply this exercise when improving your Kirchner-inspired piece from the 15th of May. In other words, the pieces I showed earlier in the PowerPoint. Because when we get back after half term, I'm going to set the following week, and that will be for you to take what you've learned and go back and improve your Kirchner-inspired portraits. In other words, adding in types of line. But that is not until after half term, so don't worry about that yet. As I said, for the moment, the dirt task is just the bit in orange up at the top of this slide. Copy a 10 by 10 section around the eye from a Kirchner portrait and explore a variation of use of line and tone. All right. Remember his variations, all the different kinds of things he does. And on the last slide, I've just put that picture in case you want to copy from it. Year 10, it's always a privilege seeing the work you guys do. Very humbling indeed, particularly because I know for some of you it's probably not easy to work at home, and you've all got different circumstances. Just please stay safe, do your best, and stay in contact if there's any questions you might have. All right, have a good half term, folks.